Hi everyone, I am Jessica. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share something fun with you that I made over the summer that I forgot about when I did the video the other day. So I actually did make a quilt this summer. In my welcome back video, I mentioned that I didn't make any quilts this summer, but I don't keep good track of the quilts I make, and that's something I want to change. So I will be working on that. But I did make one that I totally forgot about, and it was super fun. So let me tell you about it. I joined a quilt guild about a year ago, and they had a workshop this past July. And the person who did the workshop, her name is Brita Nelson. I'll put her information below. And what she talks about is disappearing blocks. So disappearing 9-patch, disappearing shoe fly, disappearing 4-patch. So they're really, really fun if you've never explored this. And I did not ever explore this aspect of quilting until this workshop. So she had a pattern that we made, and each of these blocks is made from a disappearing block. I'll show you one of them just so you get an idea of it. For example, if you start with a 4-patch here, you can turn that into this block at the bottom. Now, of course, you could just make that second block. You don't need to make the disappearing 4-patch to turn it into that block. But the fun part of this is it makes it a little bit easier. So if you struggle with cutting small pieces, or if you're just looking something fun to do, this checks that box. So you'd start out by making a 4-patch, and then you'd cut it apart in certain increments. And she has those increments listed in her pattern here. And then you would just turn the units after you cut them and then sew them back together, and you get that new block. So it's a really easy way to get a kind of difficult looking block or a difficult looking quilt top by making a really easy block like a 4-patch or a 9-patch, cutting it up and then sewing it back together. This is what we made in the workshop, and the workshop actually taught how to make these 9 blocks. And then there are bonus blocks that also came with the workshop. So if you prepared extra 4-patches, 9-patches, shoe flies, pinwheels, if you prepared extra of those blocks before the workshop, you could cut them apart while you're there and make some bonus blocks. So that is what I did with my quilt. I ended up making 16 blocks there, and I haven't used all 16, but let me show you what I made. I had the best time making this sampler. So when I was choosing my fabric for the workshop, I knew I had this beautiful fabric. This is by Buttermilk Basin. It was released this July. So I knew I had this fabric, and I bought the panel to go with it, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna make the blocks and then put them around the panel. And so all of these blocks were either specifically taught in Brita's class, or they were alternate bonus blocks. And so I took those blocks and I framed them with some sashing just so that they fit nicely around this center panel. And then I added a few borders. And I am just thrilled with how this turned out. I have struggled with making quilts with panels in them. And this is the first time that it was just effortless, and I just love the result. And now I want to show you the fun of these disappearing blocks. So here I have a shoe fly block. I'm doing different measurements than Brita had in her pattern because I am trying to utilize a layer cake. And the layer cake that I'm using today is this one. These prints are super cute. And so what I did was I used 2 different color half square triangles and then a different color center. For this block, what you have to do is cut it in half. Now you can either measure your block and divide that in half and then cut there, or you could take your block and you could fold it in half and make a crease where you need to cut it. And you're going to want to do that both ways because you're making a vertical cut and a horizontal cut. And then once you've done that, I like to take that fold line and just line it up with one of my lines on my cutting mat. Then I just take my long ruler and I'm just going to cut here. And then what you get is these 4 equal pieces that look like this. And to make the block that I have up here, you just pick up 2 of them and turn them, and then you'll sew this back together. This is just one variation. This is a disappearing shoo fly, but on the ones that I did in that sampler, we did disappearing pinwheels, disappearing 9-patch, disappearing 4-patch. We did a double disappearing 9-patch, and then we did this disappearing shoo fly. So we'll sew these back together now. So I've got you in real close today just to show you what I'm doing. So I have the top row of the block here, and basically now that we've cut it apart, you sew it together just like a 4-patch. You get a block that was really easy to make, but it looks more complex than it was to make. We'll just sew the bottom 2 together. And then we'll cut the thread, and we only have one more seam left on this block here, so I'll open these up, and you can see we have our 2 pieces going in and our 2 pieces going out. And there's our block. Here's what it looks like again, and that is how we took this block, a shoo fly, and turn it into this block, a disappearing shoo fly. I hope you give this technique a try, if only just to try it and see how fun it is. I had such a blast at this workshop, and just cutting each block and then turning the pieces and seeing what the new block would look like. It was so fun. I'm sure these will show up again here on the channel. If you have any questions though, let me know and I'll be sure to help you out. Thanks for following along.